Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to episode 10 of the Boot Report. In today's video and podcast, we have some insane gold Zidane Predators coming out very soon. We have an absolutely legendary boot comparison for you guys today. And of course, we're going to answer all of your questions. Let's start with section one, the weekly news. Now, Arsenal just released their new home kit. As with most of the other clubs, I thought Arsenal was an interesting one, not only because it's the club that I support, but also because it's a very tasteful upgrade, I think, from the previous shirt that I also have in my closet. It's a really nice red and white. I'm hoping that they go for an all-white third kit. That would be really, really cool. But it's a really nice shirt. I will probably end up buying it just to have, and I think it's very cool from the Adidas brand, as well as some of the really cool stuff that's coming out for the Women's World Cup, which will be kind of all the kit releases here in 2025 with some of the T90 like revamp kind of patterning, which is really, really cool. So that's kind of piece of kit. I don't really follow the kit world all that much. In fact, I don't really care all that much about kits unless it's a kit that absolutely looks incredible, and then I'm definitely keen to get one. The new Inter kits look really good, and then the new Barca kits look pretty good as well. So I will probably pick up a new version of my favorite color from each of those trios, right? So the home, second, home, away, and third kit of each of those teams. I'll figure out which one I like best and maybe pick those up, because why not? The other thing that I wanted to talk about in weekly news is that there has been 3 separate people just in the last couple days who have messaged me about the Copa Icon 2 having durability issues. Now, the majority of the people who are talking to me about these have different colorways. So this isn't pertinent to, let's say, the launch colorway or a specific type of boot, similar to the OG 25 Predators that had the first colorway, or the first 2 colorways had issues with sole plate durability and stuff like that. This isn't that. This is across different colorways. And I've actually had this question several times since this boot has sort of gotten into the market and it's starting to become more of a regular choice for people, because it is my humble opinion that for most people, I actually think this is the best leather boot that Adidas makes right now, not including special editions. So in terms of just regular release boots, I think this is better than the Copa Pure 3. I would rather wear this than the Copa Pure 3, even though the Copa Pure 3 is actually a great modern leather football boot. I think this gives you everything and more. I just wish the sole plate maybe was a little bit more rigid through the midfoot area, although it's not too bad in my opinion. The MG model that I have, the special edition from soccer.com, Soccer Shop Camo, which was a Japan exclusive, that MG sole plate is absolutely fantastic. That video will be releasing in a couple weeks time. I've already filmed it and it's already being edited and stuff like that, but it'll release in probably the early June as of the filming of this video. So yeah, so durability issues with the Copa Gloro. Now, this is something that I didn't hear ever with the first edition of the Copa Gloro. We're talking about Icon. This is the Icon. It's in my hands. It even says it. Okay. Copa Icon 2. I suppose the same would be for the Copa Gloro 2 as well. But the Copa Icon 2, the Icon 1 was an incredibly robust football boot. It was very thick, and it had probably the most padded sensation on the market. In fact, somebody from the audience actually just bought them from my website. So you guys can find any of my old boots, or sometimes they're new, sometimes they're slightly used, on my website. Just go to the nocavanaugh.com/shop. So those actually were just purchased. And that is a pair of boots that they were comfortable, but they were way too thick for my taste. I think that modern leather football boots, even in sort of a classic silo like this, like a Morelia 2 or other things like that, need to be a little bit lighter weight just for the times. You see you see sort of sales of Copa Mundial dropping off. Yes, it's a GOAT football boot. It's an icon. It's been around forever. But in terms of selling to the modern day footballer, especially a younger audience, they want stuff like this that's classic. It's actual leather, whether it's calf or kangaroo, and it's going to be a lighter weight package. And I haven't had personally any durability issues. So you can see kind of, this is the left shoe, obviously. So this is my strong foot. And this is probably 4 sessions in, and I have very, very little scuffing. One of the things you have to realize, though, is that when you talk about durability of a football boot, obviously a couple things come into play. One is the way that you kick a ball. So whether you hit the ground, whether you scuff, whether you drag your toes when you turn or pivot, those things can really affect the way that your boots hold up. That in combination with the surface type also makes a pretty big difference. If I'm playing with this on a natural grass surface, the likelihood of this ripping off of the sole plate is very, very low unless I'm playing on a really hard firm ground surface that maybe has a sand base to it as opposed to a mud or a dirt base to it. So it just kind of depends on what type of surface you're playing on. My guess, and from what the messages have been sent to me with, majority of these players are playing on AG, which is totally fine because this is an AG/FG stud pattern and it's great for both of those surface types. But I do think a lot of players who have issues with sole plate splitting, usually it has to do with your kicking form, and usually it has to do with the way that you strike a ball. So I'm not saying your technique is wrong, because there's a lot of pros who strike the ground as well and go through boots like crazy. But you do have to understand that sometimes I would argue it's not a durability issue. Now taking a macro view on it, that's the micro. Now taking a macro view at it, similar to the sole plate issue with the Predator 24 Elite, those first couple colorways, one of the things that a lot of people worried about was, I got messages all the time, oh my gosh, should I get a different pair of boots? The people who have issues are often the loudest on the internet. If you actually look at the percentage of people, total number of people who bought Predator 24 Elites in laceless, regular laced, and the fold over tongue model, it's probably tens of thousands. There's probably, or maybe even 100. There's probably some unbelievable number of pairs that are being worn on a regular basis. The only people complaining about them was, I didn't hear more than 10 people say something. 10 out of, let's say, 50,000 pairs or 20,000 pairs or even 10,000 pairs. Because keep in mind, a limited edition football boot, similar to something like this, which we'll get into in a little bit, the Totti Tiempos, they were limited to 3,000 pairs, which is still a lot of football boots. A normal edition Predator is going to have 10,000 plus pairs probably per colorway. So you do the math on 10 out of 10,000 and you're at less than 0.1%, less than 0.1. It's like 0.01%. And so you kind of have to think to yourself, durability on these, is it going to be that much of a big deal? I personally don't think so. It's probably people with like a very specific style of kicking where they see some sort of ripping or some sort of thing, because I can probably kick a lot harder than a lot of the people messaging me. That's just because of being a pro and being at this for probably longer than these people messaging me. And I can tell you that these boots are quite robust. That's not to say that those players didn't get what we call lemon pairs, or pairs that are, defunct and maybe had an issue, but that's what happens with mass market production. So just something to keep in mind when we think about boots that have durability issues. This is not Hypervenom 1, for instance. This isn't a boot that has chronic issues with durability. So now moving on to latest colorway drops. We have only 2 for this week, which I think is a record for the podcast over the past 10 weeks. We got another, oh my God, Unisport and Puma dropped an Ultra 5 Carbon, and I don't know what the actual the boot was called, but the title of their the Unisport's post was like, "Why always Unisport?" And it was an homage to a pair of Mario Balotelli boots. He wore the Evo Power. It was either a 1.1 or a 1.2 generation Evo Power with a bunch of "Why Always Me," because he wore the "Why Always Me" t-shirt, and then there was these news articles, and so they plastered all the news articles over this special edition for Mario Balotelli that they released a couple hundred pairs of, I think, and Unisport is basically copying that design language and putting it on a pair of Ultra Carbons. They look kind of wild. They look kind of crazy. It's not a pair I'm going to buy, but yeah, they're kind of mid-tier for me. They're kind of I'm really Ultra Carboned out. After the first couple special edition colorways, I was like, okay, here we go. And then it seems like every single soccer shop in the world got a special edition colorway, Pro Direct, F1, 11 Sports, like all these different shops got special editions. So I'm a little kind of bored about it, but it's all right. It's all right. And then we also got the Vapor One Regen, another one in orange, which I think actually it's probably the best looking out of the ones that I've seen. The silver is cool. It's not really my vibe, but I actually really like that kind of burnt orange colorway. And it's the same construction of the modern Vapor 16 sole plate, of course, with a modified Fly Touch Plus that's supposed to mimic the old Tahitian synthetic, or the synthetic, I think at that point, that was on the Vapor One. So very cool looking. It's definitely, again, better looking than the other two pairs that have dropped, both that brown and yellow pair, and also the silver and Volt R9 colorway, if you will. So those are very cool. Now moving on to boot leak releases, we have a couple really quick updates. They supposedly I have dates for two different pairs of drops. One is that the 26th of May, so 16th of May today, as of filming this video, in 10 days from now, the Hypervenom remake releases. So the 26th of May, I believe, is when it's supposed to go out. And then the Vinny Jr. Mercs that were absolutely beautiful. They are the black with the red and also the green and orange. Green and yellow are coming out on June 2nd. That's the proposed dates as of what I can find. We also, it sounds like from last week's episode, those really interesting pink boots only summer F50 Tunits that Adidas was going to drop after a successful F50 Plus Taekwondo inspired edition street shoe. Basically, they are probably going to do this boots only summer drop, which I think is really cool. I'm sure we'll see it on some fashion model or some red carpet style event at some point, especially with the boots only summer absolutely taking over. And I'm sure if they don't, they are stupid. But I think the Women's World Cup the people who are hosting that event and the marketers for that event absolutely have to lean into this. Maybe it's, hey, for the group games, at least one or two players have to show up in boots and sort of get into that vibe and into that virality. Because we're coming up on the not the Women's World Cup, the Women's Euros. So I'm excited to see what happens there. We also, per the introduction, are getting a gold Zidane Predator Precision remake. Yes, another Predator remake. These ones are gold, black, and red and white. They look actually pretty sweet. And then on the underside of the tongue, we have the 2002 Champions League final goal he scored against Leverkusen. And it's sort of him in that side volley stance, basically. And they actually look pretty cool. It's not a boot that I'm going to buy with my own money. Again, a lot of these special editions, I've talked about this before, a lot of special edition boots are ones that I will only really be acquiring if it's uber special, like something like this, the Hypervenom 1 remake, or it's something that I really, really want, like a Rotero. But I do think that first of all, the Rotero is not a remake, and so I guess that doesn't count. But remakes for me kind of are, they're whatever. If I get given them or if I'm offered one to review and then send back or whatever, no problems at all. I'd be more than happy to do reviews on them. It's just not a boot that I want to keep because the value of them goes down so quickly. You lose a lot of money with them. And I just don't think they're that exciting unless they're really well executed, like the F50, which we'll get into obviously in a minute. So that one's coming up. And then we also got some interesting Predator 26 rumors. Obviously right now we have the Predator 25, which is an absolutely sensational football boot. I absolutely love it. I think it's one of the best boots on the market. It fits amazing. The Hybrid Touch 2.0 upper is awesome. And I cannot speak enough good things about it. And we're also getting rumors. So we're actually going to get into that a little bit later, but I just wanted you to know that that is coming up in a couple sections in the future, in about 20 minutes, depending on how long Section 2 goes. Section 2, boot talk. First off, we're going to jump into an absolutely legendary comparison. And this one wasn't suggested by you all brilliant people, but I thought because of the leather F50 and the hype around it, you can see I actually took these out to the field for the review that will be dropping probably the day after this video goes live. These are an amazing pair of foot. They're absolutely amazing. I love them. They are so fun to play in. The only downside to this football boot for some people is probably just going to be the heel area because it is so low profile. But I wanted to take the opportunity to compete this and one of the OG F50 leather remakes. This is the 2014 Adizero remake with the Carbitex insert. So just a quick overview, actually, since I'm talking about this one, this is the Speed Portal or the Ghosted. They're the same sole plate. So this is the sole plate from the Speed Portal, or sorry, not Speed Portal. I just said it, Speed Flow and Ghosted series Carbitex insert that goes about 3/4 of the length of the boot, or about half the boot. Chevron studs and some pointed kind of arrow looking studs. You have a 4 of beautifully soft leather, a synthetic midfoot through basically this seam backwards, a really nice and neutral heel area with the suede liner, and a standard U-throat tongue. A very, very simple design, but incredibly comfortable. One of the best Adidas sole plates that's ever been produced, and it's just a wonderful pair of football boots. And then this, of course, is a beautiful calfskin leather that goes from kind of the backside of the medial side of your midfoot all the way up through the forefoot area. Very, very soft as well. And standard U-throat tongue with the off-center lacing system. And then, of course, the Sprint Frame 360 from the current generation F50. So both combining uppers from the sort of the in period with the sole plates. So we're going to go through sole plate, upper, heel, comfort, performance, design, lace area, and X factor. 8 different categories. Ideally, there's a tie break at some point in here. So we will see how it goes. Okay, so first category is the sole plate. Now this, for most people, I think is going to be a pretty big no-brainer. Although I really enjoy the Sprint Frame 360, I do think it's a good stud pattern. There really isn't anything that compares to the Speed Frame, and that's this one. The Speed Frame is absolutely sensational. It's a sole plate that I wore on, obviously, this boot in a couple games for Flower City. The boots down here, which I don't know if you can see, but they are the black and white, beautiful 2014 Hybrid Touch remakes. And then the regular Speed Flows, which are right up here. So it's an absolutely fantastic stud pattern. I think it looks awesome because there's carbon inside of it, and the springy feeling that you get is really unique, and I think I really miss in Adidas speed boots. So that is going to win the sole plate category. Now moving on to the upper. This is a hard one for me because I think both boots provide a unique and slightly different sensation on feet. I think this one is going to be a lot better for the 2010 version, is going to be a lot better for wider foot shapes. That being said, after some break-in time, the 2014 version actually does a great job. But just in terms of leather feel out of the box, this one, the 2010 version, the newest remake, this upper is just sensational. You put the boots on and immediately you are met with one of the most incredible molding and fitting football boots I think I've ever tried. Honestly, it is that good. Heel area, maybe a little bit of a different story, but if we're just talking everything from here up, it is absolutely remarkable how comfortable these are. And they feel light. They feel like a leather speed boot should. Not to say again that this one isn't bad, because it's one of the greatest uppers on any football boot Adidas has produced in a long time. But I do think it's going to go to the 2010 for upper. Now moving on to heel area. As I've mentioned before, I don't have a problem with either heel area. I actually would argue that this one fits me better because as I break the 2014 Adizero in, there is really no structure to this upper, and it tends, for me, to get a little bit sloppy. However, this is going to win just because I think more people are going to have issues with how different, if you can see that's a pretty significant difference in terms of how low profile this one is. And I think it's going to cause some people some blisters, particularly because it's just a fake leather interior as opposed to them putting some sort of suede or something else to kind of grip your heel. So the heel goes to the 2014. Now moving on to comfort. Now I mentioned this before in the upper. I think more people are going to find the 2010 remake more comfortable because number one, there's more leather. It's an off-center lacing system, so you have this really beautiful wrap sensation on the medial side of your foot, which is great. And overall, the comfort of this boot is just sensational. You could probably give these a tie because of the heel on the 2014 edition. It just like both of these boots are absolutely sensational in terms of comfort. So, however, I'm going to give it to the 2010 version because I do think the comfort of the boot is pretty remarkably noticeable on that one as well. Now moving on to performance. Now this is one that I'm actually going to change on my notes because I do think the performance has to go to the 2014. The reason for that is because it's got more lockdown with the synthetic midfoot. And of course, it's got the Carbitex insert on the speed frame. So although you're going to get incredible performance, more than anyone ever needs on the 2010 version, I do think those little extra touches on the 2014 model go a long way. And after some break-in time for wider feet, or like if you have narrow feet, I originally did this unboxing with my good friend Michael Cunningham, who runs 7MLC training. That unboxing video, when we did the play test for that, he has a lot more narrow feet than I do. And so we were talking a little bit about the break-in. He slipped into this boot, 0 break-in time, straight away, felt perfect on feet. And for me, that's a good indication that in terms of performance, that's kind of where it goes. Now, in terms of design, this I think is going to split opinions because I think a lot of people have such high regard for a design like this. And if let's say nostalgia was not part of the conversation, because if nostalgia is part of it, I'm going to pick this one. But in terms of just, if we're taking nostalgia out, I think it's hard to argue with a white and silver chrome plated sole plate boot. Super low profile, super beautiful, all white, silver accents. The texturing looks incredible. This is an absolutely stunning looking pair of football boots in person, and I think this deserves the design. Now, in terms of lace area, for me, this is also sort of going to split opinions. I actually think the off-center lacing system is better. I think it's a little bit deeper. It just does a little bit of a better job of giving you all the flexibility that you need, plus a lot of adjustability across the entirety of anywhere in this midfoot and sort of the lower part of the forefoot area. So the lacing area is going to go to the 2010 model. Then in terms of X factor, you really could give it to either boot. I think the more leather on the 2010 model is really, really cool. And the Carbitex and the design of the 2014 is really cool. So I'm actually going to give this one a tie. So I think, as in terms of X factor, bringing back the iconic leather speed boots that we all loved and that were always sold out in period with the modern sole plates, which objectively are, in my opinion, for these two boots at least, are better. You could maybe argue that the Gamba Track sole plate for the 2014 is like a better sole plate for some people, but this, in my opinion, objectively is just better. And so having a better sole plate, more responsive sole plate with the iconic uppers that were always sold out, it's kind of hard to argue with in terms of X factor. So we have the 2014 with 1, 2, 3, 4 and a tie, and the 2010 with 1, 2, 3 and a tie. Okay, so out of these, this I think is the winner of this boot comparison. But this is the one that I'm going to play in more because I like the fit of it and it just suits my foot so perfectly well. Absolutely incredible football boots. If you can buy a pair of either, I would highly recommend it. And those are definitely two football boots that are GOAT leather football boots, whether they're remakes or whether they're not. So thank you for all the submissions for the boot comparison. I will be continuing the trend of putting a voting system up on my Instagram at noah.cavanaugh, usually on Wednesday or Thursday during the week. And then you guys can vote on which one you want to see compared in the video. Okay, moving on to hashtag Wear Your Boots Wednesday winner. This was a pretty tough one. We had some really, really cool boots. However, there was a pair of boots that was put on. This is going to be an interesting one. Lots of really cool boots. We had some DNAs. We had some GXs. What else did we have? We had some other really, really cool football boots. But at Bozo Boots, Bozo_boots. Let's see. We had Tiempo 5s. We had DS Lite X Fly 5. We had Wave Cups. Obviously, those were amazing. What else did we get? DNAs. So that's awesome. We had a really, really good week of somebody had the Wave Cup and the X Fly Pro 3s. So some really, really good boots in the Wear Your Boots Wednesday. Thank you for all those who submitted at Bozo_boots with a picture of him in the Tiempo Legend 5 Totti Special Edition made in Montebelluna Tiempo 5s. And then on the floor in between his legs on the pitch were a pair of these. So absolutely incredible combination of boots. So he was definitely the winner for me, mostly because of these. He goes, no leather will ever match the Totti Tiempo, not even Mizuno. Interesting. I don't disagree that the Tiempo Legend 5 Totti edition has some of the most incredible Allegria leather possible. It's some of the highest quality. It's made in Italy. It's incredibly soft. It's got this almost waxy sensation to the touch. It is so premium feeling and so made, like quintessentially made in Italy. However, boots like this exist. And if anybody were to put their hands on here and go, oh my gosh, this is amazing. Blind test. Wow, this is incredible. And then they touch made in Japan Mizuno leather. Bozo boots, dude. I can see where you're coming from, but you're fucking wrong, dude. Mizuno leather is so aggressively soft. And again, personal preference. I've mentioned this in a Uno Zero reel that I'll probably put up at some point. But basically in that reel, there's made in Italy leather and there's made in Japan leather. Made in Italy leather often feels a lot more sturdy and robust. Again, K leather on both sides. And it's not kangaroos in Italy, idiots. It's kangaroos that are kangaroo hide that's imported from Australia. The made in Italy products are often, whether it's Diodora, Pantafolodoro, whether it's Uno Zero, all these that are made in Italy, including this one, have usually they're treated in a way that feels a little more raw and a little more durable and robust and not heavy, but like a little bit more robust is probably the best word I can think of. Whereas if you go to a made in Japan product, TLSS made in Japan products, Mizuno, Adler, who am I forgetting? Athleta. I think that's it. So with the made in Japan leather, much softer to the touch, much easier to break in often, and a lot lighter. So the weight of this leather feels a lot more light. It's very cushiony and pillowy as opposed to this, which is like more robust feeling. And that's the same with most made in Japan leather, K leather, and most made in Italy K leather. So yeah, Bozo Boots is the winner of Wear Your Boots Wednesday. Amazing football boots. And also, you're wrong. If you wear Morelia 2s, if you wear DNAs, if you wear Wave Cups, any of those three boots, you're going to be like, okay, Tiempo 5 Tottis, Easily one of the greatest football boots ever created, period, along with the Ronaldinho ones. But made in Japan leather is, especially Mizuno made in Japan leather, which you called out, it's just better. It's just better. There's nothing to say. And I think most people would agree. Okay. Pro versus retail models. Now, this is a section that's in and out of the pod, but it is a section because one of my listeners, Eker, who has asked some questions in the past, some great questions in the past, asked a really interesting question about pro versus retail models, specifically pro models. So I won't have his question in the audience questions, but I wanted to bring it up into this section because I think it's very relevant. So Eker asks, do all pros get custom fit boots, or is it just those with brand deals? And if most do, how do companies manage that volume? So this is an awesome question. My understanding, and it's going to depend on the brand. So let's say Mizuno, right? Mizuno has maybe a couple J-League players under contract, and then their famous players are Ramos and Joao Felix. Ramos and Joao Felix probably get totally custom football boots, or they get perfectly fit custom football boots, right? For the larger brands, so let's just kind of focus on the larger brands. My understanding, based on talking to people in the industry and all that stuff, the really top tier pros, so pros that have, Totti was one of these guys for the Tiempo, CR7, Neymar, Mbappe's been wearing regular ones, Messi for Adidas, all of these David Beckham for Adidas back in the day, all of those headliner players, because they are the player that is on all of the advertisements, they're in all of the marketing material, they are the lead. A brand is essentially going to make whatever that player wants. So you saw things like a lowered collar and a much wider fitting Vapor / Superfly for CR7. Neymar and his Tasian synthetic Hypervenom 2s, which it was a Vapor, but it was branded and colored like a Hypervenom 2. Messi and his leather / hybrid touch burrito style tongue Gamba Track sole plate, whatever their speed boot was at the time, right? So he got a fully custom boot. Any of Totti with the fold over tongue, Tiempo Legend 5s, which didn't exist outside of these special editions and the Ronaldinho Tiempos, because Tiempo 5 came without a fold over tongue. So when you have a headliner player, those players will all get basically whatever they want, so long as it looks like what that boot is supposed to be. Neymar's probably the best example of this because it was a completely different boot, but it just looked like a Hypervenom 2. All the players underneath those headliner players who have brand deals, so let's say Kevin De Bruyne with the GXs and the Lunas, let's say Haaland, although he's starting to get custom colorways, so he may get a custom edition at some point, but I don't get the sense that he will. Other players like that are really great brand assets for Nike, Adidas, Puma, Mizuno, whoever, those players will all get custom fit football boots, but they'll all be the stock materials. And Unisport put out a great video where J-Mike went to the Scheinfeld factory in Germany and went through the process of getting a custom-made Predator, but with just his foot shape, but with all of the standard materials, because they can do that. Because during the lasting period, the last, or the foot shape, basically, that you put in the boot so that it keeps a certain shape and a certain size, you can put little bulges on the places that you personally, or the pro in this case, has on their feet. So top end guys can do whatever they want. Usually they'll get completely custom stuff, and there's only a few of those people per brand, and so they don't really care. They'll make whatever those players want. And then for the majority of sponsored players, if you have a contract, you're basically just getting for the top level guys in like the Prem, the Championship and stuff, you'll probably get custom fit football boots, but just with the regular materials and with the little personalizations or whatever. And then for everyone else who maybe has like a lower tier deal, usually you're just getting free football boots and money. So they'll just hand you stacks of, boxes of whatever standard model, and then you have to break them in like a normal person does. So that's a good breakdown. But Iker, great question. And that's sort of the difference between pro and retail models. So some pros you'll see in the world are wearing the exact same boot that we have, and they had to break it in just like us, and that's it. But for the majority of top level pros, they're all getting custom fitted football boots at least, particularly if they've been with a brand for more than a year or two or whatever. Now moving on to boot culture and trends, just a quick one here. Continued low number of drops this week, which is really, really awesome. It's a really great shift from where we were 6 weeks ago, which was just absolutely overwhelming. I feel like I've finally gotten a chance to cool off a little bit, and the craziness that was my life is now Kelvin's life, because although Kelvin doesn't edit these podcasts, I do. He is absolutely swamped with work right now because there are 15 or 18 videos that I filmed in the last couple, like 2 weeks or 3 weeks, because of the high number of boots that have been releasing and the volume and all that stuff. So credit to Mr. Kelvin. And yeah, say hi, Kelvin, in the comments if you've gotten this far already. So very, very cool to see that we are slowing down a little bit, probably to gear up for the Women's Euros and all of the Champions League and Europa League and everything like that, Conference League and all that stuff. But it'll be good. It's been nice, at least from my perspective, to have a little bit of some downtime. Really quick on behind the scenes industry talk, I mentioned the Predator Elite 26 that we have 0 photos of. I have no idea what these look like, but we do have the rumors now, both in terms of some really interesting tech, and I want to go through that. So the interesting tech that we're going to get from, at least that the rumors are saying, is a power spine through the midfoot, kind of similar to the Power Swerve. Not with movable materials, though, I would guess. Like the Power Swerve had the sand or whatever that material was in the inside of the boot. So we'll get some sort of power spine, I think. And then we also, there's been a tagged word, Nano Strike Plus, which is a new material I think that Adidas is going to be playing around with. Now, part of that, and I brought out both the Rotero and the 25 only just to show you the grip elements, because the Rotero grip is the same as the regular 24 model, but the only regular 24 I have is like deep in the boot wall and it's in the corner, so it's hard I can't open the thing without totally making a mess of this room. So the point is that a lot of people really, really loved this grip element on the Predator Rotero / Predator 24. And it was really aggressive. It felt really good on ball. You could really get some good whippage and get that. It was noticeable how much more grip you got on that medial section of the forefoot and midfoot. Then over on the 25 edition, I think a lot of people were a little bit bummed that they kind of went lower volume and had a lot less grip. I don't personally mind, because I actually think this is a great amount of grip. It feels really good. And this boot is just upgraded from the previous generation of the standard model. But this is one of those things that potentially Adidas is going to start to play with. So this Nano Strike Plus or whatever it is, I think might be something that integrates into the upper a little bit more, as opposed to being actual standout sections on the upper of the boot. So something like a Phantom GX, for instance, that has the grip integrated into the upper, and there's nothing that pokes out of the upper or on top of it or isn't glued on, so that there isn't issues with durability. That's part of the reason why grip knit is such an incredible material, because you basically have this amazing grip waxy sensation on ball with 0 drop in durability, because the grip doesn't go away because all the yarns are already pre-coated. So Some interesting tech elements there from behind the scenes industry talk, which is super cool. All right, let's get into section 3, market report. Your market report this week is brought to you by the caffeine that I'm about to take to the dome. Lovely. Okay, resale market trends recently across all of the boot dealers that I follow on Instagram and that I sort of keep in contact with, whether it's one-on-one conversations or just watching their stories and keeping up with what they're posting. Lot of Phantom series from Nike coming up, not just Hypervenoms, but Phantom Venom, GT, GXs, Phantom Visions, lots of Phantoms coming up. Like there are entire pages of boots where a boot dealer will put a story up and the story will have size 8 UK or whatever, and it'll be like a 5x10 of Phantoms of all different generations and different colors. And it's like, whoa, these guys have been sitting on these for a while. So what that means is what I think is going to happen is we'll start to see that increase up to the May 26th launch date of these Hypervenom 1 remakes. And I'm going to guess that if you want a OG pair of some Phantom, buy them now, because they're just going to get more expensive after all of the people who want the Hypervenom 1 remake inevitably don't get them because they'll either get scalped online or people are just too quick, and everyone's going to want a piece of that heritage, and so they'll go and buy an OG pair instead. And so prices are going to go up. So if you want a pair of Phantoms, I would go buy a pair of Phantoms, whatever generation it is, because the hype around the Phantom series from Nike is going to be there with those OG Phantom Hypervenom 1s coming out, regardless of what generation. So some interesting stuff there. Personally, I'd love to pick up another pair of Hypervenom 3s if I can find one in an interesting colorway. I have my 2 favorite colorways already, so the other ones are in the car actually because I was taking them to the pitch, but the Euro colorway from 2018 and then the white and blue half and half colorway that it looks like a Clash Pack Nike boot, but obviously it's not because those are 2012. So Phantoms, definitely go pick up a pair. Notable boots resurfacing. This is one of my favorite sections because I get to go through all of these boot dealers that I follow and I get to go and see what they're coming out with, which is super, super fun for me. And you can really tell where the market is going based on how resellers are distributing their stock. Because a lot of resellers, if I was a reseller, I've said this in, I think 2 or 3 pods ago, where if this was what I was going to sell at some point, I would sit on these for a certain period of time or a long enough time where, hey, if I hear rumors that Hypervenom is re-releasing, I'm going to put Phantom Venom, I'm going to put the Phantom Ultra, I'm going to put all of those on sale either right before or right after that drop and really capitalize on the hype from that particular pair of boots. So anyway, at Rare Retro Boots put a really, really beautiful pair. Oh, wait, this pair, I don't know what the size is, but you'd have to DM them, of the F50 Adizero IV Leather remakes in this exact colorway. So it sort of fit with the episode. And so definitely go check them out. So at Rare Retro Boots, and then at Classic Boots Matter, who's been on the show before, put a really cool full kit F50 Tunit Messi edition with the Leo Messi kind of graffitied onto the side of the F50 Tunit with the different studs and the little screw thingy, and they look super cool. The silver with the dark blue. So both very, very cool. But outside of that, usually I have more. I feel like I get really excited about 4 or 5 different ones. This week, there was only 2 that I was like, these really are special. And one of them, obviously, I was talking about, so that fit. Okay, stock availability and drops. A couple really quick market report items in terms of stock. Vapors are selling really well across the board, and we're just talking new boots right now. So Vapors are selling really well across the board, the 16s. Both Superflies, maybe slightly less, but still people who aren't getting into Vapors are getting into Superflies and vice versa. It's the same boot, just with a little bit of an extra collar. And lots of people are looking for 16s in different colors. I actually had an old friend of mine text me this morning from, I don't know if he's living in Canada now or if he was playing in Finland because that's where he met his now fiance. But anyway, he wants a pair of those pink and blue soft ground Vapor 16s. And it's like, I get those texts on a regular basis from people because they're just looking for specific versions and colors of the Vapor 16, which is pretty cool. Tiempos are continuing to struggle. I have seen Tiempos go on sale across the board in resale markets and in retail markets, which is really interesting. So places like Ultra, Pro Direct, Unisport, you can't get people to buy those boots full price because no one's going to buy them full price. They are shocking, and I think that's probably a good thing. Hopefully that will teach Nike a little bit of a lesson in terms of taking one of the best leather football boots that we've had in a long time in the Tiempo Legend 9 and making it into an absolute joke of a football boot. And a lot of you guys sometimes question my aggressive stances on some things, but I've worn Tiempo 10 to the point where my pair was ripping. I've tested the crap out of them. I even wore them for a match at Flower City in 2023. So I know what I'm talking about when it comes to these boots. Not that I really care if you believe me or not. They're really not great. They're really not great. Would highly recommend basically anything else. So, and with worldwide shipping through places like Tokyo Football, just get a synthetic. If you want synthetic football boots and synthetic leather is what you're going for, no problem. That's amazing. X-Fly Pro 3 is available worldwide, and it's probably cheaper than a retail pair of Tiempo Legend 10s. So those exist. And then last thing here for stock availability and drops is TLSS is moving towards the EU and the US markets, which is really, really cool. More buddies of mine are getting pairs in those regions, whether TLSS is sending those directly to my homies or whether they're saying like, hey, can you special order this to my house, whatever. If you are interested and you must have a pair of TLSS boots, just DM their Instagram account. It like sometimes these smaller brands or up and coming brands, if you will, respond best if you're just like, hey, I know you don't sell in America. I know you don't sell in the EU or in the UK or whatever. Can I PayPal you and can you send me a pair of boots? And that seems to be the case for a couple of my friends who are getting pairs in. Most recently was Mark Griffin, who runs a GCFC training Instagram and YouTube channel. So he just got a pair of TLSS boots, I think in AG or MG, and they're really lovely. So a pair of Tacticians. Okay, section 4. Audience questions. You too can ask questions at noahcavanaugh.com/podcast. They are available every week. I promote it on Instagram just so we get more inflow of questions. But if you are watching this and you want a question answered, go in right now, noahcavanaugh.com/podcast, and type in your question for next week's pod, episode 11. But for episode 10, we are going to start with Robert. How did Puma go from being such a strong brand in the boot market to becoming overlooked and underwhelming? Simply put, they weren't listening to customers and they created boots that no one wants and used materials that are really not great. I would argue that they've made a wonderful comeback in the Puma Ultra 5, and having a halo model like the Ultra 5 Carbon has, I think, even despite the crazy amount of releases and special edition colorways that the Carbons had with Unisport, F1, both Miami and Japan, and 11 Sports and all these other places, I totally understand that people are colorwayed out. However, the Ultra 5 is a great pair of football boots, the regular Ultra 5. So that, I think, has, if they can make Ultra 5 and then Ultra 6 Ultimate or whatever the next Ultra is, if they can make it equally or even slightly better, I think they've redeemed that silo a little bit more, which is awesome to see. But for me, the future died a long time ago, like half a decade ago. I think it should have died. Because the Future Ultimate was no good. The Future 7 was no good. The Future 8 is no good. Like, we have had years of the control boot or whatever from Puma being really shocking. And you know what's crazy is one of my favorite boots of all time, the Puma Evo Power 1.2 and 1.1 and Evo Power Vigor. All three of those boots were sensational. And everyone I've talked to who knows is like, Evo Power, just bring back the Evo Power. It'd be so easy. And it's a synthetic based material. So it's not like you're dealing with, you know, a K leather boot like a Tiempo that used to be this amazing leather thing and now isn't. No. It was always a synthetic boot. No problem at all. Bring back the synthetic, bring back whatever that upper material was that was sort of like it was actually not too dissimilar from Hybrid Touch. Incredible boots. They fit well. The sole plate was fun and it was aggressive and it did everything really well. I think if Puma recreated the Evo Power and called it an Evo Power, or called it like, you could say like Power, you could bring back the Power Cat name or something, rename it something fun, people would go nuts. I think people would go nuts, and you'd firmly place yourself. This is me speaking to Puma executives. And if you're on the design team at Puma or you have connections with the design team at Puma, please put me in contact with them because I would love to do some consulting. I think I could really help with the brand because I think Puma's a great brand. They just need to get their shit together. Something like that, oh my days, it would crush because it would be a direct competitor to this, and it would be a direct competitor to the GX and all these other control boots. So yeah, it comes down to not listening to consumers and materials and fit and stuff just sucking. Pavel asks, if I didn't play at the level I hoped in high school, is going to university and trying to play for a club there a good idea? I'm considering religious studies in Belgrade. Would university be too time consuming? So to be honest, dude, I don't know if you're coming. I'll answer this in two ways. So let's assume you're in Europe already and you live in and around Belgrade and you're just going to go to university in Belgrade. That is a good idea. And although you didn't play as high of a level, you can always climb up the ladder, start at whatever the worst division is, basically Sunday League, and whether it's through domestic cup games or whether it's through any sort of connection you have, continue to train. But if you didn't play at a high level in high school, so I assume you're probably 18 or 19, you got to get your shit in order because you're not going to improve as fast as you need to if you don't really focus 100% on that. However, I was in college and I was 20 years old, 21, when I went over and studied abroad in Denmark. I did study abroad in Denmark. It was actually amazing. But I went and studied in, so now I'm answering it as if you're an American or an Aussie or something like that, and you're going to be studying abroad in Belgrade. That is a great idea so long as you have your priorities straight. If you want to play at a high level, you're going to have to forego, instead of getting A's, you get B's. Or instead of getting B's, you get passing grades. That's all up to you. That's a personal choice. I was lucky in that the program that I went to was not super time consuming. And that's kind of why I picked it, because I knew that in Denmark I could jump on a team, and went and trialed with a bunch of clubs and did the whole thing. And it was absolutely amazing. I had a beautiful time over there. So I think it just depends on what you want to do. If you want to play at a club, I think you should do that regardless of whether you go to university. It's just going to depend on what level you can get into given the time that you have. Teddy asks, as a fellow fitness guy, how do you manage recovery with Ironman training and boot reviews? Love the podcast. Thank you, Teddy. I really appreciate that question. Okay, how do I manage recovery? I have in the past probably not done the best job. However, I will give you my current breakdown of training so that all of you can realize how much I'm actually doing on a day-to-day basis. What is under there? I'm kicking the crap out of something under my desk. Monday is a swim, usually about 4,000 meters, about 4K, and then a lift. Tuesday is about an hour and a half bike ride, hour and a half run. Usually they're split up, or I'll do them as a brick back to back. Wednesday is a run, half an hour intense run, then a 4K swim, and then usually a lift. Thursday is a high velocity or speed session at the track, followed by an hour and a half ride, hour and a half ride. Friday, another swim, another lift. Saturday, usually about 4.5, 5 hours with efforts and stuff on the bike, followed by about an hour run, and then about an hour and a half to 2 hour run on Sunday. It's about 15 to 18 hours of training just for Ironman. The way that I do it is that I usually do my reviews on a Monday or a Wednesday, depending on how my body's feeling from the weekend, so that I'm my main activity for Ironman is a swim, which is mostly upper body. And so it's not really affecting my legs all that much. And so I'm not as tired, and I can actually perform on camera and not fall asleep halfway through a review. So that's how I balance it. In terms of recovery, I'm probably one of the worst people you could ask about recovery, because I've had 2 pretty major overuse injuries, and my body is just kind of used to me beating the shit out of it. But I would honestly say that this week is a great example. We are in heat prep right now for Ironman Cairns, or as an American would say, Cairns. It's spelled Cairns, and it's up on the North Coast. And I'm really excited for this. It's in June. It's actually almost exactly a month away. And we're in heat prep, which means I have to do in the week, I have to do my bike sessions in my front room downstairs in my house with the AC on at like 33 or 34 degrees Celsius, which, let's do 34 Celsius to Fahrenheit, is 93 degrees Fahrenheit. And then I put an extra heater, like a space heater in there, up to like 45 degrees. So it ends up averaging at like about 100 degrees in the room. And I have to do a bike workout in that. So I did one of those, followed by immediately jumped off the bike and went for an hour and 20-minute run on Tuesday. And then got up super early on like 4:30 in the morning, did my half an hour intense run, followed by a 4K swim. And those 4 workouts were in the span of 12 hours. And that was a mistake. So what I did to maximize my recovery is yesterday on Thursday, today's Friday, so I did a swim this morning. Yesterday, we had a really big track session, 10 by 800. And I had an hour and a half bike session in the afternoon that I skipped because I don't get paid to do triathlon. It's something that I do for fun. And it's something that I do for enjoyment. And if I am either one, dreading a session, or I am like completely off my ass in terms of how tired I am, I'm just not going to do a session because it's fine. Like, I'm not a pro. No one cares. And honestly, it's way better. I woke up this morning and I was like, oh, that's what recovery feels like. And I had done 3.5 hours of filming on Monday. So at the field, like doing actual exercises. So it's a lot of hours. It's probably about, like, I average probably 20 to 22 hours of like intense physical activity every week. So yeah, just doing my thing. Thank you, Teddy. Andres asks, what are your thoughts on organizing boot silos into speed, agility, control, leather, and high tech like Nike used to? It's fine. It's cool because it adds some sort of, I like it in the sense that it adds parameters, right? So you can't say a boot is a speed boot. Like for instance, the new Uno Zero Avento is a great football boot. It's very comfortable. However, I would be hard pressed to say, I wouldn't say that that's a speed boot because it's not light enough. So you kind of have to have like, and I'm not picking on Uno Zero. I'm just saying that's an example. And they're not outright saying it's a speed boot. I'm just saying in general, that's a new boot that's got like a modern twist. It's a little more speed boot like. And if the brand were to call that a speed boot, I'd be like, probably not. But if they just call it a really nice modern leather football boot, amazing. So from that standpoint, it's cool because it's like, in the speed boot category, you should probably be you should be under 7 ounces under 200 grams, and let's see what technology you can throw into a boot that's under 200 grams, because it's pretty lightweight. I mean, considering like running shoes aren't that light, even race day carbon plated shoes aren't usually that light. Some of them are, but some of them aren't. And so, yeah, I think it's cool. But in general, I am a fan more of do what actually fits your foot the best. So, yeah. Matt asks, if the Tiempo Legend 10 had leather, would it be considered one of the best Tiempos ever? That question is like, that question is interesting, because that's assuming that the Tiempo 10 had a better heel area and it was knit. Like, let's assume that you're just saying if the Tiempo 10 was the exact same shape and size and width and everything, except the material was just like a leather, either calf or K leather, would it be one of the best Tiempos of all time? I think it depends on the leather. Would it be the best Tiempo? But the answer is no. The answer is no. I don't think it's that good. And the shape is all sort of wacky, especially with how low profile that toe box is. You're not going to get a very good break-in period of time with leather. You're going to have a lot of blisters. Lachlan asks, will companies ever do true one-to-one remakes, or is it logistically impossible? Would you want that, or do you prefer how remakes are done now? Interesting question. They have all the ability in the world. You saw it with the re-release. It was sort of a re-release or a one-to-one remake of the Magista, or not the Magista, sorry. What am I saying? CTR 360. The previous, not the Magista, the what used to be. So the CTR 360 in that mango colorway they re-released, or the yellow and black ones. And that was 100% a one-to-one. And they might have fit a little bit different because maybe the lasts have changed slightly in the number of years that those boots between the remake and the originals. But that's the idea, right? So they have the ability to. It's not a big deal. But logistically, in terms of materials, sometimes it gets more complicated and stuff like that. Now, in terms of the two remakes that we have today, this boot, in my opinion, is maybe a little bit different than it's a remake, but it's not quite a one-to-one, particularly in the sole plate, but also a little bit in the fit of the boot in general. But I would argue that objectively, even though the original was really, 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 really lightweight, this is a better performing football boot because of the sole plate. And it just sort of puts the package into one particular, it like really just kind of puts everything together. Same with this one. Tech upgrades and all that stuff. So long as, and Adidas has been sort of the pioneer of this in recent years. When Nike remakes the Vapor 1, no one wants the boot. Like, you can still buy Vapor 1s for retail or under retail, which is nuts to me because it was supposed to be super iconic, but they picked the wrong freaking boot. They should have done a T90, or they should have done like literally anything other than Vapor 1. Like, it's cool. Okay, maybe you do the silver, I'm pointing up here because the box is right there. The silver and Volt yellow R9s, and you call it there. Okay, cool. We want that re-release. It's dope. It looks good. It's definitely a trophy case re-release or a remake. But the other colorways, why? No one likes them. Everyone's complaining about them. Like, even Unisport, who has to sell them. J-Mike's like complaining on camera that they're not very good. And I agree with him 100%. So yeah, I don't know. I think if you do it well, modern remakes are super special because you take away all the things that we look back on Hypervenom 1 and go, amazing football boot, one of the most unique sensations on feet, but like really crap durability. Okay, if they came back with a boot that had Nike skin, but it was an upgraded Nike skin, or you had reinforcement in the lateral and medial sides of the midfoot or whatever, oh my God, they've just made the greatest boot of all time. It's not the greatest boot of all time, but you get what I'm saying. A really amazing football boot of their past and made it even better. So that's my answer. Kim asks, I'm 19 and struggling to find where to play in Oklahoma. I started at 15 and only have 2 years of high school and 1 year of club experience. I don't have good connections or footage, and ID camps are expensive. I don't want to settle for pickup or Sunday league. Any advice? respectfully, you might have to settle for Sunday League or pickup for now. Okay. So just because you're 19 and you're older than a lot of other kids and people have more experience than you, you don't. You have 2 or 3 years of playing experience. And I am more a proponent of giving you tough love now, because if you go the next 5 years trying to play or find a place to play, first of all, Oklahoma, which I've been to once, twice. Oklahoma is not a huge soccer hub. So if you want more variety and probably better level, move somewhere else. You're 19, you're an adult, or legally you can, move. You're not under your parents' house anymore, even if you live at home. So go move somewhere. Go play, go to university, or go to a community college and play somewhere. That's going to be a really good option for you. You might have to settle for Sunday League for now to get game minutes. Everyone starts somewhere. And you're 19 and you have 3 years of experience. That means you started at 15 or 16 years old. That's a lot of lost time, dude. That's just the reality of it. And so I want you to know that I am encouraging you, but I'm also telling you and giving you a little bit of a reality check to say that most other people who are going to be fighting for positions that you want are 7, 8, 9, sometimes 10 years ahead of you in terms of how many years they have playing under their belt. So that's a decade, more than almost a decade of playing experience. That's a lot of work to do. So you're going to have to be incredibly disciplined. You're going to have to put 100, if you want to go anywhere in football, unless you are like ungodly talented, which fair enough. But at 19, Kim, I would strongly recommend just getting game minutes wherever you possibly can. And if you don't have good connections, find them. They exist. Network, go on LinkedIn, go on Facebook, type in Oklahoma, wherever you live, coaches, and you'll find people. You'll find connections. Sunday League, often a lot of those Sunday League players are either club coaches, high school coaches, college coaches. It's remarkable the types of people you would find at like a casual Sunday League or a pickup match. Really, really cool, because they're older, so they all have connections that you don't. So use it as a connecting opportunity. Use it as a networking event. And you get to go play games. So I think as much as you have such a little amount of experience, it sounds to me like you're a little closed-minded. And I think you need to have a growth mindset. And I think you need to, if you really want to play at a collegiate level, which it sounds like you do from the comment about ID camps, just go and grind. Go and grind. Go try out. Go to an open tryout instead of an ID camp, go to an open tryout at Oklahoma at Tulsa, right? The USL championship team. Go and try out somewhere else. The North Texas clubs, right? Drive anywhere within driving distance. Go if you don't want to pay for flights and stuff, which is so fair. Or move to somewhere that has really good soccer, which is Southern California, places in Texas, parts of Arizona, Miami, / most of Florida. Yeah. So that'd be my recommendation. Last question from Manu. I'm stuck between the TLSS Striker MG and the Skechers Razor. As someone who's tested both, which upper feels closer to Vapor 10? Oh, great question. Do I have a Striker? Oh, shit. It's in the car. But I do have a Razor, which is fine, because I would say that although the Striker and the Razor are both very good products, in my opinion. They both are really comfortable. They both do a great job underfoot. If I'm going to pick one to play in, oh, shit, I shouldn't have said that, because I actually don't know which one. I think both are really fun. I would easily play in both. The reason I'm going to say the Skechers is closer to the Vapor 10 is because it's a slightly ever so slightly more padded version of the Teijin on the Vapor 10. But if you didn't know, and I'm sure given the fact that you have already mentioned that I've tested both and you've probably seen my reviews on both, which is awesome. If you haven't, go watch them. But what I did say in the Skechers Razor, especially the original unboxing review playtest and stuff, this boot was developed by the people who developed and built the Nike Vapor 10. The Nike people that came over to Skechers, and it is a boot that is definitely inspired by Vapor 10, but has its own unique feeling. So if you like Vapor 10, I would go Skechers Razor. If you want something slightly different but a little bit unique, no one else is going to have them probably, I would probably go TLSS Striker, because both are going to feel kind of similar to Vapor 10. But if you want like true Vapor 10 feel, go with the Skechers Razor. All right, guys, that is going to be it for episode 10 of the Boot Report. Thank you. This was an awesome episode. I really enjoyed answering all your questions. A couple things before we wrap up is, as I mentioned before, noahcavanaugh.com/shop is where you can find boots, not this exact pair, but boots like this that I'm done testing or I've been given that are brand new and that I don't need or don't want anymore and that I'm not going to keep. 2 boots were bought today, a pair of Tony Cruz 11 Pros and also the Copa Icon 1s by an individual who I'm not sure where they are, but they bought them today. So that's really cool. So I'll be sending those out. So noahcavanaugh.com/shop for any boots that you guys are interested in. They are mostly anywhere between an 8.5 and a 9.5, depending on the boot. Then you can also join the Pro Blueprint membership, which is a full scale like coaching community. So answering all your boot questions, of course, but also helping with programming, help you guys become the best possible footballers. Just an expression of interest right now. Obviously, we're not starting it quite yet because I'm still building out the program. noahcavanaugh.com/pro blueprint. You can just put your name in there and your email, and then I will email you some more information about that and see if you're interested. Again, no strings attached. Just if you're keen, let me know. I am mostly looking for players who, number one, are getting after it and are really, really dedicated, because I'd like to work specifically with you guys. And then 20% off discount code for WeFoot grip socks, the best in the market. As always, be awesome. Take care. See y'all in the next video.